Yeah, and that kind of thing. I mean, the more I uncover, it's like peeling back the onion skins. It's like each crime is even more unbelievable than the first. And to give you another example, like in these Indian hospitals, they were having some of these Nazi doctors. We found documentation showing that under the MK Ultra program, they were using, in the mind-controlled experiments funded by the CIA. They were doing that for over 50 years here in Canada with children from orphanages, residential schools. Tens of thousands of these kids died alone.
That was Dr. Ewing Cameron ran a facility that held 4,000 people at one time, and they would CPS white kids, black kids, Native Americans, didn't matter, and ship them to Canada. And Canada, in 3 different major bases, was the main. And this is all declassified. It's on mainstream TV, folks. Mm-hmm. Do you understand? This is who we're dealing with. Please continue. I mean, you're not just saying paperclip or MK Ultra. This is all real. Tell them.
Well, yeah, and there is that history that's been documented, but what people don't see is, like, there's kind of an attitude of, well, that all ended in the 80s, and we're much better now. We're looking at all this stuff. But it isn't true at all. It just goes underground. It starts operating in different ways. One of the things that we found out is that a number of these hospitals are still operating, and they're still doing the same kinds of programs. In Vancouver, what the police regularly do is they go and scoop a lot of homeless people off the street, and they simply disappear. You never see them again. That's happened to a number of people I know. And we know it happens to Aboriginal women. They're targeted. One of the things we've established is that there's, the whole organ trafficking and snuff film industry utilizes a lot of Native people on the west coast of Canada. And that's where a lot of these disappeared women and children are going, into that. And there's a lot of collusion, especially by the RCMP and the police in that.
You're absolutely right, man. I tell you, it is just off the charts bad. It's not a feeling of powerlessness, because I'm here on the air speaking to millions of people. You've got a radio show in Canada. You've written books, and you've done some good. But imagine the good that would have been done if more people would have been as aggressive as you've been, Reverend. We wouldn't have this. And that's philosophers and historians have said a million times in different ways, that all that evil needs to triumph and win is that good people do nothing. And I'm going to tell you, listeners, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, when I did this, it was step by step. I just, it started for me by the church officials saying, look, you've got to close this food bank, stop letting Native people speak from your pulpit. Well, there's no way I would close a food bank on 300 hungry Native families in the middle of winter. I mean, I just couldn't do that in my conscience. And once you follow your conscience and not what people are telling you to do, it leads you eventually to this. But I had to look at myself in the mirror every day, and there's no way there was the expectation that I would simply cooperate and close the door and turn a blind eye to all these crimes that were still happening. And, all my colleagues were finding the way to do that, and I simply couldn't do it. So I don't think that anyone of conscience would have acted any differently, but for some reason, in Canada especially, there's a fear of confronting these churches as if they have something to do with God, which I don't believe they do.
Absolutely. I don't even know what to say. I do my research, Reverend. All I do is research. I can't even go to sleep at night now. And I have nightmares when I am asleep, because I know it's all real. I know it's happening. One example, back in 1999, we were doing a lot of local TV programs on them grabbing poor people's children. And it would be a man and a woman, and they would be poor, and they don't know when they go to, quote, get the free welfare birth at the city hospital that they take their children, especially if they're white, because they can get like close to $500,000 for them in adoption. I guess those children are blessed in a way. They don't get taken for medical experiments, or like the other minority kids, they hop up on drugs because they get more federal funds for that. You see, the evil's built into the system.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't go down to the hospitals when people called me, because it was always the same special units of pedophile police, that look, that Nelliness, that the sick smile. It's like a certain demon. I don't even know how to describe it. The MO. You see a cop changing a tire. He's a tough guy, great guy, family. He's out there just doing his job. Most of the cops aren't bad. You see him, that's a normal guy. You can tell. You know, with these guys, if you've been around them enough, it's always the pedophile CPS, sickos. It's always the pedophile cops. It'd always be the same cops. Or they look the same. It's like it's I mean, they can be black or white. They have the same look, the same eyes, the same smile. They enjoy the woman screaming and begging as they take the baby. They always go in and say, sign this form and you can keep your baby. They sign the form and the form agrees to give their baby up. They would say, well, because you're poor and because your husband's an auto mechanic and you're living in a week-to-week hotel, and they're like, but my sister's coming with money. They're like, no, you know, you're poor, so the child's at risk. We're taking it. And then you go to the court case, and the CPS is so lazy. It's a newborn baby. This is one case. They took a case of a 3-year-old child who had been abused by someone under another name and just copied the text and changed their name at the top with different circumstances, and the judge just didn't care and took the child. The family didn't know how to fight it. They'd waived. But you know, I mean, they don't even fill out the forms right. There isn't even any due process, and they enjoy, as the mother has her soul being torn out, they enjoy the howling, and then there I am, like a literal fiery laser beam burning out my soul in just anguish and torment, watching her torment, and I'm literally about to hit my knees, but I'm not crying, and I'm knowing that if I assault these people, I'm going to go to prison, they're going to have their way with me, and I'm sitting there watching them feed like demonic entities as the baby's being taken, and how they're smiling. I mean, damn them to hell!
Well, I know, I see this all the time, too, and it's like, it's a sickness that's spreading, you know, and we have to somehow find a way to encourage people of goodwill to confront that, and that's a big job, just getting people to find the courage and to do that.
But I mean, how do you do it? I can't do it anymore. I can cover it on the air.
Yeah.
I can barely have these women and men on just hearing it because the flashbacks. How do people like you constantly live in this and watch them ripping the innocent apart? How do you watch the murders? How do you watch them hurting children?
Well,
how do you do it?
You find other people who are willing to speak out and fight back. And, you know, a lot of the people I work with, they're homeless Native men and women. You know, they may have nothing, but they have the integrity to get up, and we stand outside these churches and we confront these people going in and saying, look, you gotta, you know, take a stand here. And their courage helps me, and my courage helps them. You know, we do this together. We don't do it on our own.
So it is the brotherhood, the sisterhood.
Definitely. And I find that all the time. I'm encouraged by them all the time. I find the strength at the root. I don't find it, you know, it's not going to come from the government or anybody in authority.
Power is weak. Evil power is weak. These are they're sick.
Yep. You know, I've seen how people heal from this, too. Like, one of the guys I work with, he's a severe alcoholic because he was tortured on a rack. They had, in this Catholic residential school, they had actually a rack set up where they would torture kids. And he's never been able to talk about it. But one day, last Easter, actually, we went into a Catholic Mass and just stood there very quietly and nonviolently with a banner, and it said, all the children need a proper burial. And we walked out of there, and the whole congregation stood up in respect as we walked out, because they were acknowledging. I mean, the priests were very angry at us, but they were all welcoming us. When we got out of that church, William, this man who had gone through the school, there was a light in his eye I had never seen before, and the next day he stopped drinking for the first time in 18 years. You know, because he felt the power. He was able to find his voice and act and confront these guys, and that was his healing. And, you know, that's the way we do it. We do it publicly and we do it together. Otherwise, you know, they thrive off the fact that we feel isolated, demoralized, and alone. But we have to break through that all the time. And knowledge is power, you know. You arm people with knowledge, and you just be out there where they're suffering, and you carry it on. I mean, you know, we do that together.
Absolutely. I mean, for people who haven't seen this, it's just unspeakable. Mm-hmm. And society's imploding because all this evil's in control, and then so there is bad stuff happening in families. There are bad people individually doing things as well, and the establishment publicizes all of that to make the people look bad but make the system look good. But from what you're saying, it looks like you've had some progress. I mean, it's been in the news that admitting this is going on. What has it turned into? What are they currently doing? How have they tried to camouflage it?